Once upon a time, in the days when fairy tales really happened, there lived a man and his wife. They were a happy couple, for they had everything their hearts desired. They had a little house, a little garden, and in the center of that garden they had a pretty little juniper tree. Yes, they had everything their hearts desired. Everything, that is, except a child. More than anything else, more than their house, their garden, their tree, this couple wanted a child. But they did not have one. One winter's day, the wife stood in the garden beneath the juniper tree, which is a handsome pine, with needles so dark they are almost blue, and little red berries that look like drops of blood. She was peeling an apple with a knife when her hand slipped and she cut herself. A drop of her blood fell to the snowy ground. She saw the drop of blood on the snow and she thought, "Oh, how I wish I had a child, as red as blood and as white as snow." Hold on, I have to interrupt. You think you know this story. You think it's Snow White. You think wrong. If I wanted to be educational, I would explain that fairy tales often share motifs with one another. Images and phrases that crop up again and again, even in tales from different countries and cultures, which is a little bit interesting. I do not, though, have any desire to be educational. No, I just want to tell you this completely messed up story. Well, a month went by, and the snow with it. 2 months, and the world was green. 3 months, and flowers came out of the ground. 4 months, and the trees of the forest pressed hard upon one another, and the green branches all mingled together. The 5th month passed, and the wife stood under the juniper tree, as its blossoms fell to the earth. When the 6th month was gone, the berries had grown big and firm, and the woman became very still. After the 7th month, she snatched at the juniper berries, and ate so greedily she grew sad and sickened. When the 8th month had passed, she called her husband, and wept and said, "If I die, bury me under the juniper tree." With that she took comfort and was happy until the 9th month. Then she bore twins, a little boy with dark hair, dark eyes, and lips as red as blood, and a little girl with dark hair and green eyes and cheeks as white as snow. She brought them to her husband. This man took one look at his 2 beautiful children, and he was so happy that he died. What? He was so happy that he died? Yep, that sort of thing used to happen all the time. It was just, "Oh, I'm so happy, I'm so happy, I'm so happy." Dead. On the infant's very first night in this world, their mother sat by the fire and wept with joy for her living children and with grief for her dead husband. The infants, off in their crib, wondered where their mother was and why she was not holding them, and where that distant crying sound was coming from. At last, because a baby needs to be held, the infant girl reached out her tiny hand, and the infant boy reached out his, and they held on to one another. Now this mother was a very learned woman. She was known far and wide for her collection of old books and her mastery of dead languages. But no amount of learning or knowledge had prepared her to raise 2 children on her own. She had no books for that, and what she did read about children in her ancient books had very little to do with these 2 delicate, squirming, crying creatures. She was afraid. She feared that she would raise them badly. So she pretty much left them alone. She would feed them and clothe them, and then she would retire to her study and pore over her ancient books in dead languages and try not to think too much about the babies who cried for her from the room upstairs. Well, these babies grew, as babies will. Soon they were scampering around on their own, laughing and running and playing. Everywhere the little boy went, the little girl went, and everywhere the little girl went, the little boy went. They tended to the house together and played together out of doors and tucked themselves in bed at night and told each other bedtime stories so their mother wouldn't have to stop her studies. And they rarely called each other by their names, which were strange and German and hard to pronounce. They called each other little brother and little sister, even though they were just about exactly the same age. They loved each other so dearly that one grew sad when the other was out of sight. The little boy would often say to his sister, "If you won't leave me, I won't leave you." To which the little girl would always reply, "I will never, ever leave you." Now, even though the children called one another little brother and little sister, I can't manage to tell their entire story without using their names. I did try, but it gets very confusing. For example, if I wanted to let you know that one of them looked little, I can't say, "The enormous murderous ogre peered down at little sister." That would sound weird. Since I'm going to need to use their names, you're going to have to learn to pronounce them, even if the children generally didn't bother. The little girl's name was Jorinda. Now you say it. The little boy's name was Joringel. Now you say that. Yeah, German is weird.